Welcome, panelists, speakers, special guests, and viewers from all across Canada. Thank you for joining us for our special Black History Month celebration. My name is Alethea O'Hara-Stevenson, President and founder of the Dufferin County Canadian Black Association. On behalf of the executive team, I am honored to be able to host this event in partnership with the Museum of Dufferin and the Dufferin County Diversity and Inclusion Committees. The theme of this year's event is Solidarity in My Community. And over the past year, we saw just that with the overwhelming support from allies across Dufferin County who walked in solidarity for equity, justice, and fairness for the Black community. We saw this in both the town of Shelburne and in Orangeville. We wanted to bring the theme forward this year into this year's celebration so that we're not only celebrating and recognizing the contributions of Black Canadians past and present, but also to honor the legacy of those who came before us and continue to work in solidarity with each other. When the Dufferin County Canadian Black Association was established, we were founded on the basis of advocacy and for advancing the needs of the Black community in Dufferin County, while partnering with various organizations such as the county, the Museum of Dufferin, and the various municipalities and organizations to support those needs. We pride ourselves with not only being advocates, but also with providing the much needed education and cultural awareness initiatives for an inclusive community. Of course, none of this would be possible without the legacy and the hard work of those who came before us, and therefore it is my honor to introduce a revered and honored leader who made today possible. The Honorable Jean Augustine is the first Black Canadian woman elected to House of Commons and served 4 consecutive terms from 93 to 2006. During her time in office, she was responsible for many portfolios, but one of her most notable achievements was in 1995 when she secured unanimous legislative support to have Black History Month recognized in Canada. She is the recipient of numerous awards, including an Honorary Doctor of Laws, Woman of Distinction Award, Order of Canada, and most recently, Maclean's Lifetime Achievement Award. She was also the recipient of the World Vision's Hero of Children Award. Please join me and enjoy this message from the Honorable Dr. Jean Augustine.
Happy Black History Month. Dufferin County Museum, as well as your organization and your supportive group of individuals are in the Dufferin County Diversity and Inclusion Committee. I am so very pleased to join you today in celebration of Black History Month 2021. The theme of the month is The Future is Now. And why is it that the future is now? As we're celebrating 25 years of Black History Month designation in Canada. I arose in the House 25 years ago and put the following motion to the House of Commons. And the motion went right to the point, just the facts, because I wanted unanimous consent to my motion and not have anything in there that would be debatable. And so the motion says, and I will read, that this House take note of the important contribution of African Canadians to the settlement, the growth, and the development of Canada, the diversity of the Black community in Canada, and its importance to the history of this country. And I ask my colleagues to recognize February as Black History Month. And so 25 years ago, a very simple motion put to the House, getting unanimous consent, was really giving voice to what we already know. We know that a people and a people's history must be recognized, must be told, in order to build the self-esteem of a people. It is said, and I had it here somewhere, it is said that a people without the knowledge of their past history, their past origin, their past culture, is like a tree without roots. And I'll say that again, because I always feel that this is what we're about when we celebrate Black History Month. We're emphasizing the fact, and this was said by Marcus Garvey, a people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. And so the idea of focusing on people of African descent is really to say, who are our neighbors? Who are the people in our midst? Where did they come from? What is their history with us in Canada? And it's a vast history. 1603, the first Black man, we're told, coming as a navigator on the ship with Champlain. Also as an interpreter, because he knew the Mi'kmaq language by 1603, and they tell us if he knew the Mi'kmaq by 1603, then he would have been here before 1603, because as one person jokingly said, there weren't a lot of Mi'kmaq people around the ports in Portugal where the ship left from, the expedition left. And so we know that long history, and it has been a painful history. It was a history of settlement, a history of past wrongs, injustices, brutality, and in many instances, promises unkept. Lands promised. United Empire loyalists coming with their enslaved people, the buying and selling of people in Canada. At the same time, we know that African Canadians have been resilient. We have been building. We've been developing. We've been participating in Canadian society. And those are the stories we want to tell in Black History Month in Canada. We know a good deal about the African American. And I think that many of our young people in schools know more about Washington and the players there than they know about Ottawa and what is taking place in legislative processes in Ottawa. I admire and I commend you as a county and all the decision makers who are supporting the issue of diversity and inclusion. Because you see, we have agreed as Canadians looking back, as it were, to 1971, we agreed that we were multiracial, multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious. And if this is a society that we are, and we pride ourselves on our diversity, and we say diversity is our strength, and we hold ourselves up as Canadians as being one of the best places in the world to live. We welcome people into all of our communities. Look at who your neighbors are. Look at your constituents. Look at those people who receive your service. Their level of participation. The fact that everyone in the society must be acknowledged, must be recognized, must be part of whatever structures there are. Given an opportunity to participate, to contribute, African Canadians excel and can excel. But we need the opportunity. It is so important for us to recognize that Black history is Canadian history. It's all of our history. It's not just for Black people. Black History Month and the activities of Black History Month speak to all of us as Canadians. And so the stories and narratives of our past and our present, our future is greatly diminished without the stories, without the narratives of our past and our future and our present. The future is greatly diminished. Our nation's stories help us understand each other, and they help the world to understand us. And talking about the world, this year's Black History Month have not just come at a time of the pandemic, Black Lives Matter discussions, systemic discrimination, anti-Black racism, but it also came at a time when we are in the midst of a decade that the United Nations has set aside as a decade for people of African descent. Because you see, wherever people of African descent are in the world, we see some similarities. We earn lower income. We have higher rates of unemployment. We experience higher rates of incarceration. We suffer poorer health, mental health issues, and we're more likely to be the victim of violence. And so the United Nations has given us 10 years to remedy all of those ills that came about as a result of colonialism and other ills like slavery, etc. And so, as you're celebrating Black History Month in your county, I'm so very pleased that there is some understanding that we're all in this together, and we have to do what we can in our own sphere of endeavor to provide leadership, to give affirmation to groups like your diversity and inclusion group and the work that they're doing, to ensure that your libraries and museums and archives contain material that could enable and help individuals to truly understand who their African Canadian neighbors are. So let us celebrate the 25th anniversary of Black History Month in Canada. Let us recognize that it is Canadian history no matter where we live in Canada. And let us also affirm the fact that we have, as a society, to ensure promotional opportunities, voices around our committees and boardrooms, that all things are inclusive in our society. So congratulations on the work you do, and congratulations, county and board members, as you move forward and as you take the issue forward after, hopefully, this pandemic is over.
What an inspirational message. Thank you very much to the Honorable Jean Augustine for sending out that message. We felt it was really important. By the way, my name is Nancy Malik. I'm with the Museum of Dufferin. We felt it was very important to hear from our political leaders of all 4 levels of government about what they are doing to address systemic racism. So I'd like to introduce our panelists now. Representing Canada, Federal MP for Dufferin-Caledon, Kyle Seaback. Representing Ontario, our Solicitor General, Sylvia Jones. Dufferin County Warden, Darren White. And Shelburne Deputy Mayor, Steve Anderson. Welcome all.
Glad to be here, Nancy.
Okay. Sylvia, I believe you had a couple of words you wanted to say first.
Sure. Well, thank you. And thank you for the Museum of Dufferin for hosting today's event. I feel like I have to start with saying happy 25th anniversary. It's a great honor to serve as Ontario's Solicitor General, in no small part because the Anti-Racism Directorate is actually housed in the Solicitor General's office.
Mm-hmm.
So I have had some very direct and involvement in the Anti-Racism Directorate, which I call my small but mighty team. We often talk about Ontario's strength, and the well-being and growth of our communities depends on our ability to work together to set a new and a better course today and for future generations. Systemic racism prevents individuals from fully participating in Ontario communities and denies equity in terms of rights, freedoms, respect, and opportunity. Racism hurts everyone. The damage caused can be physical, mental, and spiritual. And there are always economic costs. And I must reinforce that as we are dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, we are seeing it very directly. So the fight for a better Ontario that lives up to its promise requires partnership and grassroots leadership, which is why I'm so pleased that here in Dufferin County, we've had some real movement together on a number of organizations and individuals working together for a better Dufferin. So I know there's more work to do, and our government is determined to build a province where young Ontarians can grow up free from racism, hate, and discrimination that has hurt our province for far too long.
Great.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you, Sylvia. I'm actually going to start with you. You have said, I quote, "The reality of racism cannot be relegated to the history books. It is a reality that our neighbors and friends experience every day, and it must stop." What is the province doing immediately to address this?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, as I said, as the minister responsible for the Anti-Racism Directorate, what that directorate does is actually working across government. So we've done some very positive things with in the education system, for example. There have been some disturbing examples in certain parts of Ontario where the Anti-Racism Directorate has come in and been able to work with the Ministry of Education and the local boards of education to educate, inform, and ultimately improve. We have done this with the COVID-19. So the Ministry of Health felt it was critically important, as did the Anti-Racism Directorate, to start to track where the testing was and putting race-based statistics in. So now that we have the vaccine and we're starting to do rollouts, we can see which communities are more impacted by COVID-19. And what we have found, I'm sure it would be no surprise to many of the panelists, is in fact, Black and racialized communities are more likely to contract COVID-19 and be challenged by it with higher incidence rates, as well as, unfortunately, in some case, death. So we've been able to do that tracking within my own ministry since January of 2020. We have been tracking through all of the police services boards across Ontario, race-based data, and we're starting to get that information now to see where the challenges are, where more and additional education is coming. I'm particularly pleased with some of the partnerships that the Anti-Racism Directorate has done. So for example, a number of months ago, we did our first collaboration with Civic Action, which is business leaders in primarily the GTA, and it was attended by over 500 individual business organizations that wanted to learn more and be educated and understand how they can help their employees and staff. So that was very well received, and I love the partnership model, which is why I'm so pleased that here in Little Dufferin County, we're doing it with the museum and Alethea's organization. You know, when people come together and actually start to listen to where the challenges are and where the opportunities are, that's where I think we really get things done.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sylvia. Kyle, we are aware of racism in Canada. It's no surprise. Some people don't think it's there. It is. For the spirit of solidarity, at the federal level, is this something the parties can come together on and to work together to end this urgent issue?
Look, absolutely. And I think at the federal level, there have been steps that are starting to be taken. I mean, first of all, we now have a Minister of Diversity and Inclusion. And within the Minister of Diversity and Inclusion is the Anti-Racism Secretariat. And that is an organization that's looking at a whole of government approach with working with federal organizations in order to identify systemic racial barriers and gaps and develop new initiatives and new policies and services to help and deal with help people in racialized and Indigenous communities. And I think that's a great first step. I also want to talk about a couple of other areas that racism has led to a whole bunch of other issues. The first thing I look at is the justice system. And I think we've all seen there are more than enough reports to look at systemic racism in the justice system. And this is something that primarily falls at the federal level and something that I think urgently needs to be addressed, whether that is conviction rates for racialized communities, in particular in the Black community, whether that deals with tougher sentences that get handed out to people from racialized communities, and in particular the Black community. And these things, I think, have to be addressed sooner than later. Another thing I do want to touch on, though, is the issue that we have at the federal level, which is a lack of representation from the Black community. Mm-hmm. In preparing for today's meeting, I decided to take a little bit of a look. The Black community is about 3.5% of the population in Canada. There's currently only 5 Black members of Parliament across all parties, which works out to be about 1.3% of the members of Parliament in Canada. So we have a representation issue right now in Canada that we, I think, very, very clearly need to address. And we need to address that at all parties because we need more people from the Black community involved in dealing with the laws we pass at the federal level and specifically addressing systemic racism. And I think the final thing we look at, and Sylvia was talking about this with respect to COVID-19, racism often leads to economic inequality, and we have to find ways to address that. So I think there's a whole of government approach that we have to look at to all of these issues, and these should be nonpartisan issues. These should be issues that we can all get behind to try and address. And I think it's somewhat fitting as we look at the 25th anniversary of Black History Month that we are talking about issues like this so much more. And I think in particular due to movements like Black Lives Matter and raising these issues to put them on the front burner. And I think as politicians, it's now our obligation to keep them on the front burner and actually make progress on all of these issues.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kyle. That's very hopeful to hear. Dufferin Warden, Darren White, we know that you are an incredible supporter of all the residents of Dufferin County and you have zero tolerance for hate. Could you please tell our viewers what the county is doing to bring change?
Well, certainly, Nancy, and thank you to the organizers for allowing me to come and speak today, and I'm very honored to be here. And I'm struck by the eloquence of the Honorable Jean Augustine's messages as well at the beginning of the meeting. It was very timely, very well stated. We're doing a lot of things at the county, and number one, I mean, we started, obviously, this is the second year in a row that we've raised the Pan-African flag at the Dufferin County Museum and the county offices to signify Black History Month and proclaim February as that. But one of the bigger things we've done is we've started, along with my colleagues at County Council, and Steve was one of them, our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. And I think that is a very big positive step forward for the county, for our politicians, for our community members, and and our staff members as well. We've also started a number of training initiatives. County council members, all of us, have gone through a diversity training program, and that program has been offered as well to all of our more than 400 staff across the spectrum, I believe. And there was a lot of really strong take up on that. We've also partnered with Alethea and Steve and the other folks that have started the Dufferin County Canadian Black Association. We've partnered with that organization to help move things and various initiatives forward. And, other things as well that are sort of in the hopper, like a couple of years ago, I asked County Council to consider the creation of a Dufferin County Youth Advisory Committee. That sort of has been sidelined a little bit as a result of COVID, but we're looking to get that back up and running. And I certainly hope that that will give youth and a diverse group of youth, quite frankly, across our county, the ability to have a voice in what happens at the political level, municipal and county as well, and even federal and provincial. We've expanded our Bill Hill scholarships, and anybody that's listening or watching today knows that Bill Hill was a giant supporter of education for youth. He was a likable guy. He was well liked across the county, and he liked a lot of people. He was very diverse in his views of the world and the county and moving things forward, and certainly one of my mentors in my current role. And I was honored to be able to work with our county council members to add some money and some additional scholarships to that program. We also, we're so lucky at the county to have a fantastic group of staff. All of our staff is amazing, but when you really look at our director level and our senior managers levels, we're so lucky to have people who are, they don't only talk the talk when the cameras are rolling, but they believe it. They believe in diversity, and they believe in equity, and they believe in moving those initiatives forward. People like Anna McGregor in community services, so focused on equity for all and moving everybody forward in the same way. Sherry French in our human resources department, constantly seeking updates to our policies to promote equity. And Sarah and Daryl and yourself, even at the museum, constantly reminding us of where we've come from and where we are yet to go.
Yes.
I'm going to miss some staff, so I apologize to those that I've missed, but I can't list 400 people there today. One of the big buzzwords, I think Steve might agree, at County Council over the last number of years has been equity. And it has been something that we've tried to view any number of different things through an equity lens and add that to our discussion so that when we do make decisions, we are cognizant of the effects it will have on every community. And we're really trying to move those kind of initiatives forward. But there's two really important things that I think that we're doing that sort of maybe rise above it all, in my opinion anyway. And one of them is listen. Simply that, listen. We're listening. For the most part, everybody I can think of is trying to actively listen to people who are telling us what the problems are, what we need to do, where we need to go. And the second part of that is we are hearing that. It's very easy to listen. It's not quite as easy to hear what is being told to you. Absolutely. And I think we are trying to hear those suggestions and those ideas and actually action them and move it forward. So I think that's some of what we're doing at the county today. It's not without its bumps. I think we would be, missing the point if we thought there wasn't going to be bumps. I mean, even just last week there was a bump, but it is an ongoing process, but it is one that we are determined to push forward. And as a result of meetings like this and discussions with some of the folks that are on this call, I find myself now always being aware of it. As warden and as the vice chair of the Western Wardens, I attend a lot of meetings with a lot of people. And I find myself now looking at the faces on those screens and seeing how many racialized groups are identified, how many people, how many women are there versus men, and how many people of color are there versus not. And the more I do that, the more striking the dichotomy of our situation is, and the more important I think it is that we continue to move these things forward. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Warden, very much. Deputy Mayor Steve, you have said, and I quote, "As leaders, we were fully aware of the need to take urgent steps to help our community, but we first needed to educate ourselves on the issues." Could you elaborate a little on that, please? What are these grounding issues?
Well, I think at this point we have a full understanding what these issues are. We saw what happened over the course of the summer with the murder of George Floyd and the social justice movement moving forward. But before I even go there, I'd be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to thank the Dufferin County Canadian Black Association, of course, the museum, and I'm clearly honored to be a part of this distinguished panel. I do want to touch on something before I go there. I must say that it is comforting to hear all levels of government acknowledge and recognize the issues when it comes to anti-Black racism, systemic discrimination. So when we talk about issues, it's first using the language, understanding the language, what it means. And as you heard the warden say, listening, hearing, and taking action. And so for me, it's meaningful to hear that not only as an elected official, because I work as a partner, as the Honorable Minister said, with all levels of government, but it's also important for me as a Black man, because beyond being a politician, I'm also a Black man, and that's obvious, with a Black family. And so these issues matter to me. It matters to my family, it matters to our community. And so for them to be taken seriously is very important. And oftentimes I think our community, Black and racialized Indigenous, are told to be patient, told that change takes time, we should wait. And I think on the theme, as we talked about at the very beginning, the future is now. I think it's clear that action has to be taken now. There's no time for waiting anymore. And I compare that, and somebody say, well, Steve, what do you mean by that? Of course, change takes time. This is something monumental. How could we expect to change the virus of racism tomorrow? Well, I asked people to take a look at the momentous and record-breaking changes that we've made in addressing COVID-19, something that has just come onto the scene barely about a year. And we've seen all levels of government put together resources, manpower, women power, you name it, to address that virus, because we understand the impacts that it has on people's lives. People are dying. People's mental health is at stake. The list goes on and on and on. And so is the virus of racism. And so if we could have the same coordinated approach, the same urgency, because we understand that it's spreading, then I could see the situation of racism and the work that has to be done and the impacts being mitigated if we're prepared to take those steps. So what are the issues? Those are the issues, Nancy, and I'm happy to be one of the leaders in the community in addressing those issues.
You certainly are, Steve. Thank you so much. And thank you to our political panel. Don't go away. I'm just going to be introducing our next panel, which represents the entertainment community of Canada. Industry executive, artist, DJ, record producer, and one of the strongest live performers I've ever seen, Cardinal Fischel. Canadian Songwriter Hall of Famer, artist, motivational speaker, author, actor, and all-round sweet guy, Maestro Fresh West. Stratford Festival stage, oodles of television series, including Orphan Black, and most recently he played Louis Armstrong in the United States versus Billie Holiday. There's a subject. Oh my goodness. Canada's most sought after actor, Kevin Hanchard. Welcome. Cardi, I'd like to start with you. I had a question for you that I wrote a while ago, but I was, of course, on Twitter yesterday, as I am a lot, and I saw your February 16th tweet. And I will say it, the irony of doing a post about how hip hop in Canada was not supported by the industry at large when we were coming up, just to have my post blocked and taken down with Instagram citing that is due to a label not granting me permission to use my own song. Work still to do. Well, here is my question. Hip hop is #1 most popular music in the world. Here in Canada, why has it been such a struggle for the urban music community to compete and be accepted by the mainstream? Can you lay that out for us?
Absolutely. I mean, can everybody hear me first and foremost? It is very important as an MC that I make sure that everybody listening can hear me and see me. Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate it. You know, here's the interesting thing that we don't like to discuss a lot about being Canadians is a lot of time when we speak of anti-Black racism, when we speak of systemic racism, when we speak of bigotry and hatred and other things, we oftentimes, it's weird even to say, use the language of saying romanticize, but we romanticize with this thought and idea that it's all south of the border and that everything is fine where we are. But what's interesting has been, you know, my journey, and, you know, part of my journey was alongside my big brother Maestro, who has, you know, mentored me literally since I was a kid coming into this industry. We are very, very, very conservative here in Canada. Right. And it's funny, I was talking to a friend of mine when I was telling him that, actually, no, it was off camera, we had a joke about my manager, Carlos. Yes. I was talking to Carlos just yesterday saying how, you know, firsthand, and not even, you know, flying, but literally, you know, in the beginning parts of my ability to tour as an artist, becoming a touring artist, we got in a van and drove from here all the way to Victoria and back, and then all the way as far east as you can go. So I've experienced this country several times over in real life, in person. And, you know, I'll be honest, in Canada, you almost feel the tension, you almost feel the discrimination more than you do down south. Mm-hmm. What's interesting is I had no idea that upon my first tour, and, you know, I remember our tour manager, we stayed awake because we were excited well into the night, but then he's like, listen, you guys go to sleep, and, you know, I'll wake you up when you get somewhere. So I remember, you know, it's the morning, 9 or 10 o'clock, and we're all waking up. And I remember we stopped at this little gas station that had like a diner attached to it because we needed to use the restroom. And I remember walking in, and it's just like a movie that you would see where everybody's head just turned and everybody was just staring at us. And I was like, this is weird. You know what I'm saying? I had never experienced that type of, I don't know, that type of situation before. And I just remember, you know, whatever, like we were young, so we were also young and ignorant. We had no idea exactly what was going on because we thought the rest of Canada was like Toronto. We thought it was a cultural mosaic. We thought that, you know, you had all these different ethnicities and cultures that are, you know, for better or for worse, living together. But no, we didn't realize until, you know, leaving the metropolis that not everybody has that same shared lived experience. And, you know, I kind of sum up Canada versus America, or maybe not versus, but in contrast to America like this. There's two types of dogs. There is the big dog that growls and will definitely let you know how they feel. And, you know, when you get bit, you're like, well, he did growl, he did show us his teeth, and we knew what was happening. And then there's the other dogs that look very friendly. Yeah. And you may walk up to them and even try and pet them and they'll bite you. We are the friendly dogs in Canada. That's who we are. And I almost would prefer the dogs that growl and bark, because then at least you know where you stand. It's almost more difficult to not know where you stand. And as a person of color, more specifically a Black person, it's so difficult to navigate. And that's been my lived experience. And, I think, due to us being so conservative, and then, what's actually interesting is socially, never mind our political beliefs, but we like to think of ourselves kind of as liberals just in terms of how we communicate with one another on paper.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that is also part of the problem, because we have not addressed issues for so long. Years ago, we started a very public reconciliation with the indigenous community. And, it seems that post George Floyd, we are sadly just starting the reconciliation, with our Black community across Canada. And it's been tough. It's been interesting. And, myself and others have experienced what others were able to kind of finally understand. I think what happened with all of the social uprising that happened last year, and not just George Floyd, but all the other murders and all the other injustices that seemed like it was popping up on TV left, right, and center.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of people that called me distressed, that called me crying, and in an odd way, they were apologizing to me, various different people from different walks of life. But, for us, not to say that we definitely didn't feel the same way, because we were like, well, now you understand our pain, because this isn't new.
No, it's not.
You know what I'm saying? The situations that happened with George Floyd and many others have been happening well before I was born, and I'm 44 years old now.
Right.
So what I like, though, is that it seems like we are finally, to some degree, getting the engagement that we've been looking for.
Mm-hmm.
I'll end on this because I know I'm being verbose, but I'm a rapper, so that's what we do.
Okay.
But I will just say that, like, my friend Michael Che, he has a comedy special to where, he's talking about, civil rights. And he's like, listen, we don't even want equal rights. Like in the 60s, we just wanted you to be civil. That's what we were looking for. You know what I'm saying? It's like now it's so crazy that, we're just trying to get equal rights, meaning we are still fighting just to be on level playing ground. You understand? Mm-hmm. So, I think within the music community, the reason why we haven't been accepted, quote unquote, by the mainstream, I would say in this country, it's because we have a lot of reconciliation to do. And, I could give you guys, send you guys a digital deck that shows you how proof, it's not opinion, it is fact, that Black music right now that encompasses hip hop, R&B, dancehall, reggae, Afro beats, everything that you can think of is literally right now the dominant force. When it comes to economics, it's the dominant force across the globe. But here in Canada, unfortunately, the mainstream still is denying these facts. We are still living in a world in Canada that prioritizes rock music and country music and alternative. And although I do love those genres as well, I just think it's a terrible injustice to a lot of artists like myself, like Maestro and others, who have to go outside of our country to seek recognition and be able to create a sustainable career.
Thank you, Cardi. Wes, amongst your many talents, you are an incredible motivational speaker, and you speak to youth across the country. As a musical leader and as a father, what do you tell the youth about how to conduct themselves when confronted with racism?
First of all, I want to say thank you for having me. Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
And I want to say a special shout out to my brother Cardinal, and an extra special shout out to the Honorable Jean Augustine. That was a very beautiful message that she laid out. Her energy has been infectious for generations, and it's an honor to have her here. I just want to reinforce her quote because I take notes. I take notes from Cardinal. I take notes from Mr. Seaback, Mr. White, everybody. But one thing that I took a note with Jean Augustine, she quoted the Honorable Marcus Garvey: "A people who don't know their past is like a tree without roots." And I want to add on something that I learned from Zanina Akande. Effective efforts have been made to control our stories. And I'll repeat that for the blunt smokers in the back. Effective efforts have been made to control our stories. That being said, if you can control someone's story, that means you can control how they think. If you can control how they think, you can basically control how they think about themselves, right? So if we're in a state where we don't know what we've accomplished, if we're in a state that we don't know what we've done in the past, and these are effective efforts, right? It's the same thing that's going on right now. You see what I'm saying? So if we want to look through a history perspective, right? When we look at Africa, let's look at Africa quickly. If you look at ancient Egypt, all the facial features of those pharaohs, all those facial features have been removed. So the world doesn't know our greatness. That was an effective effort being made to control our stories, right? I'm the first Black artist in Canada to go platinum. We moved from calling it Black music to urban music. That in itself is diluting the potency of our creation. Do you see what I'm saying? Doesn't mean we want everybody involved in this, just like we created, astrology, numerology, whatever. You all need to know about personal hygiene. We're gonna show you this. Y'all need to learn about science, mathematics. We'll show you that too. We learn together. All we say, number one, is respect the architect. But by removing knowledge of that, right, there's going to be problems in terms of what you're asking me right now. You see what I'm saying? Yes. So my whole thing is it's bigger than what's going on right now. It's through time, and I've been affected. My man Cardinal's been affected. We just mentioned Jean Augustine. What a beautiful speech she just had. I remember going to Ontario Black History Month event, and I saw an orange book that just stood out there. You know how they sell books, right? Mm-hmm. And I saw this book, and I pulled it out because the title was Against All Odds. I just like the way it looked, man. It was Against All Odds. Then I looked at it, and it was the story of William Peyton Hubbard, the Black leader, municipal reformer. They never told us in schools that Toronto once had a Black mayor. They never told us in school that Toronto once had a Black deputy mayor. Shout out to my man, Steve, you know what I'm saying, of Dufferin County, right? But history's been there from time for our accomplishments, but effective efforts have been made to wipe us out. So the youth coming up through music, there's always going to be a division between what my brother Cardinal has done, what I have done. We're from a generation where you give back, like you acknowledge your peers. This generation, they've been socially engineered and programmed not to check for us. It's not even their fault. They're going up against the machine, right? And there's a big separation. So these are the things that we all have to address. And these are the things that we all have to go through. Mr. Seaback mentioned we have representation issues dealing with the laws of being passed at federal level. But once again, if the youth don't know about their true greatness, they won't know how to position themselves properly to get in to be implemented in these positions. So that's a part of the misrepresentation right there. The part of the social engineer is removing the youth, our community, of knowing what we accomplished in the past. We see, once you know what you accomplished in the past, you feel great about yourself. You wake up smiling. You wake up saying yes. But when you remove that, right, you're lost. You're under hypnosis. You see what I'm saying? And yes. We're going through a time when we as a community have been under hypnosis from what's going on through media. Watching news. The news right now, you got to look at me personally. That Zanina Akande quote affects me every single time I turn on a television. Every single time I've used one of my smart devices, because before I embrace and ingest anything that comes to me, the quote, effective efforts have been made to control our stories. My brother Cardinal just mentioned a few minutes ago, he put up a post that was removed. You know what I'm saying? You know why they removed you, Cardinal? Because what you were saying was enlightening us to reach our true potency, reach our true greatness. Understand? You're public enemy number one, my brother. Understand what I'm saying? Because these efforts have been made to wipe us out. You're a threat. Anyone who can show you what you've been through in the direction you're supposed to go to is a threat. And we don't want it to be like that. We want it to be like, just respect the architects. We're here for everybody. We can all learn together. And that's what Minister Jean Augustine was saying, right? So that's where I am right now. It's always going to be an uphill battle. We have a lot of issues to address, but it's an honor to still be recognized. And me traveling, they didn't tell us about the beautiful Black communities in Nova Scotia. They didn't teach us that in school. We got 10 generation, 11 generation of Black Canadians. They didn't tell us about that. Jean Augustine also mentioned about the slave trades. They don't mention that. Mr. Cardinal just mentioned how there's the dog that barks and there's the quiet one. We like to be the quiet one, but underneath the table, there were slaves right here. Understand what I'm saying? This is a beautiful country we live in, but we have to address We have a beautiful country, but we have to address, our issues right here. And it's hard when you're so close to such a geographical force at the United States of America. But we have issues right here that we have to deal with, and we still live in the most beautiful country. It's an honor to be born and raised here. But these are things that we have to address. These are things we have to acknowledge, not only for us, but once we do this, we can help the generations coming up beyond us, beyond the parameters of just music.
Thank you, Wes. Kevin, you've been in the entertainment industry for quite a while. You've seen a lot. From when you started your career to present day 2021, have you seen a change in the balance of opportunities in film, stage, television jobs for actors of color?
First of all, let me say thank you for having me here. There's been some very eloquent speakers before me, both politically and entertainment-wise. So I'm humbled to be a part of this panel. As far as my career goes, it's been 23 years that I've been at this, and as an actor, and even Wes can attest to this as well. When you first start, you're just happy to be working. You're happy to be that someone thinks that you have enough talent to put you on stage, to put you on screen, and a lot of times you take whatever you can get. And as a young Black actor, when you start out, sometimes those roles are less than desirable. You're playing elements of society that that you're not proud to play. And there was a point in time where you just did it. You look back at actors who we respect now, like Morgan Freeman and the like, who would look back at their roles at the beginning of their career and say, if I had known then what I know now, I might not have done that. I'm proud to say that in the last few years, and especially in this last year now, there's been an opening, there's been an awareness that things need to change, and they need to change yesterday. And that's not just with me as an actor who gets a role and who gets an audition and says, I'd rather not do this. It has to start with the producers, it has to start with the writers saying, I'm not even gonna write this, right? I'm not gonna relegate my performers of color to these specific roles. It has to do with the fact that producers are producing Black-led stories that promote and uplift Black people, that show them as everyday human beings that love, live, die, dream, and want the same things as their white counterparts, but have not been allowed to present that on screen or on stage. So there's been a rapid change in the last few years. I mean, we have had some over the last few years, especially with the rise to prominence of people like Tyler Perry, and him taking economic control of his own situation and building studios and saying, if they're not going to do it, then I'm going to do it myself, and bringing other people along with him. And there's a litany of other Black directors and producers who are following suit in kind. But it's a process. I'm happy to say that times are changing. There's a hell of a lot more work left to do. I'm trying to be at the forefront of it as well. Although I don't produce, I am at least trying to put forth an example and change my perspective and change the roles that I perform because representation matters. Ultimately, that's what really is. I wouldn't be here as an actor if I didn't see other actors of color before me, and I didn't know that I could attain those things. So if they see me performing roles that are uplifting, if they see me, being a member of my council, my union council, speaking on panels like this and encouraging young actors, young performers, young musicians, young writers, young poets to be more than society said they can be, then that's the only way to continue to move this ball forward.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kevin. This is a powerful conversation. This is an important and very much needed conversation, and hopefully this will continue. At the moment, we're just have a couple of presentations. I'm going to ask all our panelists to stick around for a few minutes. We do want some words of wisdom from you at the end. But right now, I'm going to introduce the curator of the Museum of Dufferin, Sarah Robinson. Sarah.
Thank you very much, Nancy. And thank you everyone for joining us today. It's been a fantastic presentation so far. I'm going to do a little bit of a presentation about an exhibit that the Museum of Dufferin has launched entitled Solidarity in My Community. On February 9th, we launched this virtual exhibition. And thank you to all the artists and photographers who submitted their works. We have over 53 pieces submitted from across the country. And the exhibit will be available until March 31st at dufferinmuseum.com/BHM. And I'd also like to take a few minutes to thank our jurors who had the very difficult decisions to award specific awards to each artist and each photographer. So thank you very much to Alethea O'Hara Stevenson, who is the president of the Dufferin Canadian County Black Association. Thank you to Deputy Mayor Steve Anderson. Thank you to Althea Casamento, Corby Banner, and Mercedes Arazo. And I'm just going to share my presentation now so that we can see our award winners for today. All right, so in the photography category awards, we would like to present the Student Award, and this is sponsored by the Dufferin County Canadian Black Association. And the Student Award is awarded to Kiara Mooney for Don't Be Quiet. The next award is the Jurors' Choice Award, sponsored by the Rotary Club of Shelburne. And the award winner is Jennifer Brown for her photograph, Sisters. And Best in Show for the photography category is Kiara Mooney for Integrated, sponsored by the Museum of Dufferin. An honorable mention in the photography category goes to Christina Leslie for Roots 8. Another honorable mention is awarded to Savannah Stevens for her photograph titled Black Lives Matter Walk. And our final honorable mention is awarded to Alicia Winter for Interracial Solidarity. On to the art category awards. Our student award is awarded to Abigail Willie for Eyes on the Allies, sponsored by the Dufferin County Canadian Black Association. Our Jurors' Choice Award goes to Alexis Quittilin, A Blooming Community, sponsored by Museum of Dufferin. And our Best in Show in the art category is to Daniel Forrester for Behind Red Bars, sponsored by the Museum of Dufferin. Our honorable mentions for this category go to Kiwana Apple Wayne for Words of Praise. Also an honorable mention to Laura Han for Breaking the Glass Ceiling. Another honorable mention to Caitlin Hewitt, We Are All Equal. And our final honorable mention goes to Aya Al-Jawad, We Paint the World Together. Thank you very much. And at this point, I'd like to pass it over to Alethea, who is the president of the Dufferin Canadian County Black Association.
Thank you, Sarah, for the introduction and for sharing with all of our viewers the amazing talent that we have in our community. It is impressive to see when you put a call out for artists, the amazing talent that we have. And it is fitting that as I introduce our next speaker, she's also able to share her talent with us. So it is my honor to introduce our next guest, the amazing and talented Nadine Williams. Nadine Williams is a Jamaican-Canadian award-winning poet and arts educator. Her published works include 5 books and several Black History Month posters, just to name a few. This distinguished poet has guest lectured at local universities and recently at the University of Vienna, Austria. She has opened for Mrs. Obama, Prime Minister Trudeau, and the Jamaican Prime Minister. She is a true community advocate and can be found reading poetry, installing artwork, delivering keynotes, mentoring or facilitating workshops in schools, communities, and both local and international governments. She is the recipient of multiple awards and recognitions from governments and universities. Please join me in welcoming Miss Nadine Williams as she recites one of her original poems. Nadine, thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Dufferin County and friends, thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of your celebrations today. I'm sharing with you my 2021 Black History Month poster poem called All Aboard. There are many important ships that we will sail upon on the sea of life, while friendships and relationships are among the most popular. Yet still, there are some that have yet to be discovered. Sail with me and help me navigate these rough seas. Come on board, but not as a spectator. There is so much work to do. Stand up, speak up, grab a bucket or two in the crashing waves, open a map, or check the weather forecast before the ship sails. No matter the shade of our skin or the shape we're in, we all win when we get on board the ally ship. Thank you.
That was powerful, Nadine. Thank you. I have chills. And what a fitting message for this year's theme, Solidarity in My Community. All aboard. We're all in this together. Allyship. Absolutely powerful. Before I turn it over to all of our panelists to close out the day, I'm going to invite you back, Nadine, to share your inspiration for this poem. What was the inspiration behind Allyship, All Aboard?
Aha, thank you so much for that. You caught me on the spot there. But certainly allyship, I have quite a few educator friends, and in every year somewhere around November or so, I start to look at the theme for my upcoming Black History Month poster. I've done about 12 of them so far. And I was speaking with an educator friend of mine, and we both agreed that allyship, we need more hands on deck in this fight. There are so many rooms where a Black person isn't present. And so we need those allies to call our names and call not only our names, but the causes in these rooms. And we need all hands on deck. That's essentially where the inspiration came from. And then I used using the ship analogy was important, because this year I had made nominations to the Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada, and they just designated the enslavement of Africans in Canada as a historical significant event. So thinking of All Aboard, kind of tying it in to that experience as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I'm going to end it with you asking you, where do we go from here? How do you see the future?
Hands in hand together. I really love what's his name here? Cardi spoke about this big dog and the little dog. That really stayed with me. But definitely hand in hand. There's so much work to do. All aboard. We need all hands on deck. We need to remember that Black History Month, it doesn't just happen in February. We're running as artists. I'm sure Wes and Cardi and all the other artists can attest to this, and speakers as well. We run a marathon in February. We have 11 other months in the year. So let us continue this dialogue, these conversations. Even on this panel right here, I saw a couple areas where we could be educated. And so the work, it's where we're all learning every day. Just continue on this track, continue to bring allies on board in solidarity for this great work that we're all doing.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Cardinal, I'm going to hand the mic over to you. As an entertainer, as a philanthropist, you've got so many accolades under your belt. What is your message for our youth?
Oh boy, no weight in that. I would pass on probably a message that I think worked for me for most of my life, which is a message of be encouraged. Be encouraged. It's a very, very simple yet difficult thing to talk about in terms of like passing on just one simple message for the youth, because there were so many different messages that I learned from so many mentors over my time. But as I say that, and even coming out of my mouth, I think what is important is understanding how to bridge generations, how to bridge even different ways of seeing the world. I'll put it this way, because I hope to impact not just people of color, but just all people in general. But I say that, and I'm going to use this very specific situation and this very specific language. I had a meeting with a gentleman at my office at Universal one time. He was interested in having me be a part of he wanted me to have my own television series or something. That's not the important part. The important part was that he said to me, and this is, I'm sure a lot of us have either heard it said directly to us or we've heard it in society, to where he said, "I don't see color." But what I said to him was, I need you to see color, but I need you to respect the color, respect the cultures, because here's the thing, Black people are not monolithic. So even within just the idea of Black people, you have African Black people, and within the continent, you have several different countries, hundreds of dialects. Within the Caribbean, there are several different countries, all with their own cultures. There are so many things globally that impact Black people, and we think about things in just a variety of different ways. It's very important that people do see color, but that they respect what goes along with that color. They get a deeper understanding of what it means to be, for me, my lived experiences as a Jamaican Canadian, you know what I'm saying? Being a first generation, you done all right, Nadine, all right. But, the importance is that it's the same way that, we celebrate in the summertime on the Danforth, we celebrate, Greek people, or we'll celebrate Irish people at a certain time, or, there are, in Toronto especially, there are different places where there's an Italian community and, maybe a Chinese community. And it's very, very important to understand the different nuances, the things that make us great. And I think once we really take the time to actually understand what it is that makes each other special, that is a real way that we can actually see progress, is by you seeing color, but you seeing values, you seeing the morals, you see all of the things that build these different communities. And I think, to sum it up, the best way that we can see progress and the best way that we can have a true allyship is by having everything we do being rooted in an empathetic understanding and an empathetic reasoning, because only through empathy can you see the possibilities through the communities and the different other various opportunities that come with having a lens on of empathetic understanding. So I guess that's just a long way around saying empathy. That's what I would say to the youth, is to really have a thorough understanding of what it means to be an empathetic human at your core. And I think once we have that, a cyclical nature of empathy, I think that is going to be something positive that will affect us moving forward. And I think that's what we saw last summer, and that's what we're seeing now, especially with all these esteemed people on this panel. So thank you for having me here, and I'm glad that we can have this dialogue, because it's super important.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm going to go rapid fire mode right now, and I'm going to hand it over to Kevin. What is your closing message?
One thing that really stuck out for me during this panel is that there is a leadership void. There aren't enough Black people in positions of power. And right now, I'm sorry, I forget who said it, but people had talked about, someone had mentioned the fact that we're supposed to be patient and wait for our turn. Well, whether we wanted to or not, we have been patient, we've waited for our turn, but our time is now. And there are people who have been in positions of power who are finally hearing our voice, who are hearing our pleas and our cries, and are stepping aside and making room. And when that happens, that creates a vacuum. And, not to get into grade 12 science, but nature abhors a vacuum, right? We all learned that lesson. And it's up to us to step into those positions and fill those voids and affect the change that we've been longing for so long. So whether that means becoming a member of the board of your condo corporation, something as simple as that, and affecting your immediate community, whether it means running for municipal or provincial or leadership in some way, it's not enough for us to sit back any longer and talk about it. there's room for us to step in and affect it and change it. So that's what I want to see done. There are a myriad of boards out there that people can be a part of. Whether it's a theater company, something that has to do with community activism, there's room and there's space and there's opportunity. And I encouraged everybody, young, old, your voice is needed. Your sweat is going to be valuable, and now's the time to really step up and make a difference.
Perfect. Your voice is needed. On that note, I'm going to hand it over to Wes. Thank you, Kevin. What is your closing message, sir?
My closing message is that extraordinary people will always have extraordinary challenges. Extraordinary people will always have extraordinary challenges. This is a very extraordinary time we're going through right now, and but we're extraordinary people. I'm putting on a workshop tomorrow, which is it's a writing workshop. It's called Check the Resume, helping the youth, put themselves in the right position. You blink, next minute it's spring. You blink twice, next minute it's summer. When you look at the word resume, it has two meanings. Resume, it's spelled the same way as resume. Resume is a verb meaning as you go forward after you've been interrupted. That's the meaning of resume, to go forward after interruption. We as a people, we've been interrupted. We've been interrupted with knowing our true greatness. We've been interrupted in so many different capacities. Let's just look at what's going on right now. COVID-19 has affected, devastated families, interrupted our community in so many different capacities. But guess what? Coming together and knowing your true greatness, right? We could resume and go forth and forward in these extraordinary times. Peace.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Wes. And MPC back, any closing message?
I do want to go back to talk about representation, and that means representation at the political level. And I've talked about how the Black community is very significantly underrepresented in the federal parliament. One thing I will say is this: getting involved is important. And we do actually have a conservative internship program. That is where young Canadians are able to apply for internships to work in members of parliament's offices. I'm not sure if this is widely known, but we do not get enough applications from the Black community or from any racialized communities. So if any of you would like information from me on that, I've put my email address in the chat. I'd be happy to share that. I would love to see more applications from the Black community. I have an intern that comes and works in my office in Ottawa every year. And I think that's a great way to start getting some more experience that can lead to that type of political engagement, which we need far more voices from the Black community.
Wonderful, thank you. And Warden White?
Thank you, Alicia. I mean, anybody who's listened to me speak, usually I've started to refer to Dufferin County as the ever expanding tapestry that is Dufferin County. Our community is changing rapidly. And while there are members of our community who don't think that's a good thing, I think it's a great thing. I think it's invigorating or reinvigorating to our community. I think that it is offering a new opportunity where opportunity may not have existed before. And I think it's fantastic. And to seize on Kevin's point a little bit and sort of what Kyle just said, you're correct. There are lots of boards. Every municipality has lots of local boards and things that are available for people to sit on. And we're always looking for people from the public to come out and sit there. And in my lower tier municipality in Melancton, we often have challenges filling those seats, let alone who we're filling them with. And so I encourage people to get involved and I think there is some change at that level coming in Dufferin County. And I don't want to single Steve out because I know he doesn't really like to be singled out, but and I think it's because of Steve, or partly because of Steve, because he is one of the most eloquent speakers I have met in the 10 years I've been in politics. He speaks so eloquently about every issue, whether it's a racial issue or not. He's just a fantastic leader of the community, and I think people seeing that are gonna seize on that, and people are gonna say, I can do this too, and I can step up too, and I can come forward as well. And I'm honored every time I get to work closely with Steve through County Council. Our municipalities are directly next to each other, and I think he's just a great leader, and I think those kinds of changes will happen. I'm excited about what can come of some of the initiatives we have in the county, the Youth Advisory Committee, getting youth involved in the local political spectrum. I think it's very important. I work with youth, as some of you I'm sure know, and I mean, I'm a stepfather of 3 kids and a grandfather of 5, and I'm not interested in raising them in anything other than a world where we promote equity and promote fairness and promote decency. And so I'll leave it at that before I start rambling on like I have a history to do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Warden White. And I will hand it over to Deputy Mayor Steve Anderson, the first Black councillor, the first Black deputy mayor in the town of Shelburne. Steve, your closing comments, please.
Thank you. And I'll say thanks to the warden for his comments, because we spoke about why representation matters. And in a position like this, we want to exemplify Black excellence so that our young ones that are seeing us in this position see what is possible for them. I do want to pick up on what Mr. West and Mr. Official said about our use and value. And so my message to the youth is learn and appreciate your value. That's very important. Look at yourself as gold, that no matter sort of what time we're in, gold tends to maintain its value. And so when the world wants to look at you as a depreciating asset, just remember who you are. So that's my message to the youth. Value yourself.
Well said, and what a powerful way to end our session today. Value yourself, see yourself as gold, see yourself as royalty, and you'll be able to stand tall. Thank you everyone for attending today's Black History Month celebration. Thank you to all of our amazing panelists, our amazing speakers who took time out of your busy schedules to be here with us and to share this powerful message about Black History Month and standing in your power, seeing yourself as gold and, celebrating solidarity in my community. Of course, none of this would have been possible without the amazing support and collaboration and partnership. Again, speaking of solidarity, partnership with all of our community members, the Museum of Dufferin, Dufferin County offices, and of course, the diversity and equity committees all across Dufferin County. So thank you everyone for coming out. Thank you to all of our amazing viewers from right across Canada who tuned in to hear today's Black History Month celebration live. And we hope to be able to put on many more events like this in the future. So hats off to everyone and thank you so much. And over to you, Nancy.
Thank you very much, everyone. I just wanted to talk to the viewers before we go. We have a little homework for you. I want you to go to Google and I want you to put in Black History of Canada and start your learning process. Very important. Thank you all. Appreciate you being here.
Oh, good job. Good job.